I honestly find these inventory figures genuinely astonishing, with 24,000 units of honey available alongside 44,000 jars of orange marmalade and 80,000 flour sprinkle packets. I really thought those specific items were intended to be the massive commercial success for the brand. But the reality appears to be quite different. It is hard to believe that Sage Honey has thousands of units sitting there while the cider mulling kits have 14,000 unsold sets remaining. These products were clearly intended to drive sales during the Christmas season, and now it seems nobody is interested in them outside of that holiday window. The toddy mulling kits show 15,000 remaining, while the first candle option has 27,000, and the second candle variant has a staggering 62,000 left. There are 39,000 packages of peppermint tea sitting in stock, along with 35,000 lemon tea units and 37,000 hibiscus tea packs. Then we look at the wine selection, which you would naturally assume has been ordered in high volumes, yet still shows massive amounts of available inventory. The Brut champagne lists 6,800 bottles, while the Sauvignon Blanc shows 46,000, and the Rosé sits at 23,000. Even the wooden crate option, which contains just a single bottle, has 1,900 unsold units remaining. I mean, these statistics are truly eye-watering, and anyone analyzing this business model would immediately conclude that you have a significant operational problem. This is where the narrative becomes incredibly intriguing, because when the brand finally launched, the team quietly suggested that everything had sold out in under an hour. It was specifically 45 minutes to be exact, implying that if you blinked, you missed the opportunity, or at least that is what they wanted the public to believe. However, there was one crucial detail notably absent from that narrative, which is that they never disclosed the actual production numbers to anyone. Nobody knew if it was 50 jars or 500 jars or 5,000 jars, yet the announcement was celebrated wildly like confetti at a wedding. Then suddenly, everything went silent, with no sales reports and no celebratory posts and no triumphant press releases announcing specific figures. We saw only aesthetic vibes and beige photographs, coupled with numerous public relations interviews insisting the brand was thriving and totally premium. It felt comparable to watching someone boast about a perfect report card while actively hiding the actual document under the table. However, rumors always find a way to breathe, and this particular story was about to ignite because of what was happening behind the scenes. Somewhere in the quiet corners of the internet, someone stumbled upon the actual data not through hacking or insider secrets, but simply through curiosity and a shopping cart. The moment that digital cart revealed its secrets, the beige dream began to show its first significant cracks. This is the turning point where the story shifts from mere speculation to genuine shock, as a clever shopper attempted to add absurd quantities of products to their cart. They were not trying to purchase them, but rather testing to see how many units were actually left in the system. Most e-commerce websites would typically stop you and say, "Sorry, that is too many. Here is the maximum you can buy." However, the website confessed everything, and when the real numbers spilled out, the internet did not just blink, it practically fainted. It was a revelation that required smelling salts because sitting in warehouses, quiet and lonely, were 45,000 jars of orange marmalade. There were 137,000 boxes of fruit spread trios and 80,000 tins of flour sprinkles, along with tens of thousands of teas and candles. In total, there were 864,473 unsold items, totaling nearly 900,000 products. It is a mountain of inventory, effectively a beige avalanche of disappointment, and let us estimate the math conservatively just for fun. If each item cost $5 to manufacture, which is a generous estimate that represents over $4 million of unsold inventory just sitting there. These products are aging and expiring while whispering to each other asking, "Weren't we supposed to sell out in 45 minutes?" Those are the kinds of financial figures that make investors stare out the window and seriously reconsider their life choices. The narrative of an instant sellout did not just crack at this point, it completely shattered, because a successful brand should not have 1,000,000 products sitting idle. A company promising instant success should not have inventory collecting dust in a warehouse like forgotten toys, and she was about to learn a hard lesson. The internet never lets go once it identifies a contradiction, and this is where the beige dream took its first real tumble. Once customers actually opened their boxes, the illusion did not just crack, it fell straight off the shelf. People expected elegance and soft luxury that looked like Instagram heaven, but what they received looked like something packed during a rushed lunch break. The tissue paper was thin, and the labels were crooked on jars that felt light and ordinary, as if they were shy to even be there. That dreamy beige aesthetic looked like it needed a nap when seen in person, and the products themselves failed to impress. The teas smelled strong but tasted like scented water, while the flowers looked more like dried potpourri from a grandmother's bathroom. The spreads were runny and uneven or half-filled, as if the manufacturing team simply forgot to finish the job. The boxes did not whisper luxury, they whispered, "Oops!" And once people saw the quality, they could not unsee it. The fantasy she tried to build began slipping through her fingers, one crooked sticker at a time. This is the chapter that truly shakes the table, because at first the returns looked normal, as every new brand gets a few. Then the numbers doubled and then tripled, and suddenly the returns were not trickling in, they were stampeding. The worst part was that many customers sent products back without even opening the jars because they took one look at the packaging and rejected it. They effectively said, "No thank you, refund please," because some jars arrived unsealed and some spreads were watery. Labels were wrinkled or sliding off, like they did not believe in themselves. And then came the crown jewel of chaos. There were candles with no wick, meaning a candle that cannot burn and exists only to sit there silently like a beige paperweight. Her team panicked, holding emergency meetings and supplier calls to launch a full investigation. They discovered rushed batches and sloppy assembly, along with crushed flowers and messy labels, meaning the whole operation had been wobbling since day one. Customers were not returning the person, they were returning the experience, and that realization stung. While the team was scrambling, something even scarier began happening as retailers went quiet. It was not dramatic or angry, but the kind of quiet that says, "We are going to pretend we didn't see this," and slowly walk away. Emails took days to reply, and phone calls ended with vague promises like, "We will follow up soon." Reorders paused, and partnership conversations vanished into thin air because stores do not gamble on brands with high prices and low quality. To them, the brand was not luxury, it was a liability, and she felt that shift instantly. The soft enthusiasm she had felt in the beginning was gone, replaced with hesitation, distance, and silence. A brand can survive bad reviews, but what it cannot survive is retailers losing interest, and that is exactly what was happening. The brand was not just struggling, it was being politely abandoned. And this is the moment it face-planted into its own beige fantasy. You see, beige is dangerous because it only works when it is perfect. Otherwise, it stops looking like luxury calm and starts looking like hotel soap. The labels had no texture and the jars had no weight, making the poetic phrases feel not thoughtful, but like a homework assignment in cursive. People did not see minimalism. They saw corner cutting, and once customers started returning $36 spreads, they were making a statement. When they returned $64 candles, they were not just saying the products were bad, they were saying the branding exposed them. The fancy image could not hide the flaws. Instead, it highlighted them because she had built a brand that was supposed to whisper elegance. When customers touched it, the product whispered, "I cost too much and do too little." And once a luxury brand loses its illusion, that is the whole show. Behind closed doors, the team finally sat down for the meeting no founder ever wants. The returns were not slowing nor stabilizing, but accelerating like a roller coaster with no brakes. This time, no critics and no tabloids and no haters could be blamed, because these were paying customers quietly walking away. Her team revealed the truth that the brand was not failing because people disliked her, but because the products did not match the promise. Imagine putting your whole identity into something, including your taste and your eye for detail, only to learn those details were betraying you. The wickless candle and the crushed flowers alongside the sloppy labels were not drama, they were reality. She felt every ounce of it because every lifestyle brand lives or dies by one simple truth. The customer decides the ending, and customers decided early they like the idea of the brand. They like the coaxy fantasy and the soft colors with that elevated morning coffee energy. But the execution was absolutely not acceptable. People returned items unopened, still sealed and perfectly wrapped, meaning the disappointment was not in the taste but in the first impression. Some buyers even reassembled the packaging carefully as if they were embarrassed the products didn't live up to the hype. Their message was clear and devastating, saying, "We wanted this to succeed, but it didn't." Once a brand loses trust, it doesn't matter how pretty the packaging is because the story is already written. Now we reach the cliffhanger of this beige empire. As the first chapter ended with nearly 1 million unsold items, There is a wave of returns and confused customers, along with quiet retailers, and the kind of mistakes a luxury brand simply cannot afford. She now has two paths, where the first is to rebuild everything from scratch with new suppliers and discipline. The second path is to let the brand fade quietly into the background, tucked away like a storyline from a season nobody watched. Here is the truth she cannot escape, which is that you can market luxury and you can pose as luxury, but luxury is not declared. Luxury is earned, and the world isn't watching her branding anymore. It is watching her next move. Everyone is waiting to see if she learned the lesson hidden inside those 864,000 unsold dreams.